Well, Cleveland, it is the moment you've been waiting for. The Cleveland Cavaliers get back to action, start of the 2023-24 season on Wednesday night against the Brooklyn Nets tomorrow. And we're here to preview it with you, getting you set for the regular season. It's Spencer German. It's Tommy Wild. It's another episode of the Cavs Insider Podcast. That's right. Excited to be back for another edition of the Cavs Insider Podcast. And finally, we don't have to speculate anymore. We don't have to talk about just things that could happen or might happen or this or that or the other. We can actually talk about meaningful basketball here in a couple of days. And Tommy and I are certainly excited about that. Tommy, it's an exciting time of year, man. I'm glad that we'll finally have tangible basketball to talk about.
Yes. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we've been talking about it all summer. Training camp, preseason, but we are finally here. Regular season getting underway, and you say we're not going to be speculating anything, but we actually might be speculating one or two things here with the roster and starting five. So it never ends. It never ends.
That's true. I maybe have misled the viewers on that one by saying we weren't going to speculate. We're going to speculate a little bit. We're going to have some fun with this episode because I think it's worth talking about just what expectations should be for this season. JB Bickerstaff, the hot seat o-meter, if you will. How hot is his seat going into the year? And doing some other fun things. But I think a good place to start, Tommy, is probably just with an update on the injured Cavalier that everyone certainly is paying attention to, which is Jarrett Allen.
Let's speculate. Will they play on Wednesday? Time to speculate.
We're already speculating. So based on what I was heard from JB Bickerstaff in practice on Monday, I don't know that he's going to what I'll say is this. It doesn't sound like he's going to be ready for the Nets game. I don't know that for sure. Things could change. This episode dropping on a Tuesday. They practice again on Tuesday. So it might be one of those things where he practices. The biggest thing JB emphasized was he wanted to make sure Jarrett practices fully before they put him on the basketball court for an actual game. So that would mean if he was going to play in the Brooklyn game, it would have to be Tuesday before he would actually play in the Brooklyn game. And just based on kind of what we saw him doing, which is sort of shooting some threes and some light work at the end of practice. Yeah, he was shooting some threes.
Interesting.
Go to @Spencito_ and you can see the video. He was taking some threes. I don't know if that's a sign of things to come. I don't think so.
Speculate. How many threes is Jarrett Allen going to shoot this season?
Not many. I'm not guessing many. But yeah, I think like he was just kind of doing some light work was the gist of it. He wasn't doing anything too intense. And I think that was kind of JB's point, was not necessarily at a point where he can return to practice fully. And until he does, you're probably not going to see him in a game. I think though, Tommy, as much as people kind of want to know when he's going to be back and they want a firm answer on it, I think it's early. It's the beginning of the season, right? Like this is the time of year that it's okay to let somebody kind of nurse something. You don't feel the pressure or the rush to get him back there, and he doesn't have to try to play through an injury. Why not just give him the time to sort of make sure he's completely right?
So I agree with you, but I also disagree with you. So obviously, Jarrett Allen, you can't control injuries. Like he's injured, you can't force him back quickly. However, I do want to play devil's advocate a little bit here, and I'm a little concerned about one thing with Jarrett Allen's injury, and that is JB Bickerstaff has talked training camp, even before training camp starts, about how this offense is going to look a little bit different this season in terms of ball movement. He wants it to be more dynamic. It's not going to be as much pick and roll as we saw. I mean, pick and roll is not going to be the main offense they run. And your starting center, your cornerstone center that you signed to a long contract extension, hasn't played in any of your preseason games, has been missing out in training camps. Like, again, it's not Jarrett Allen's fault that happened, but I am a little concerned about how, he's going to get acclimated once he does get back. And does that affect the rest of the offense? You got to get him back up to speed with this new offense and playing together. And your first 5 games aren't necessarily easy games. They're against tough opponents. I don't know, the Jarrett Allen not playing I mean, again, I want to stress this off. It's not his fault that he's not playing, but it does worry me. Do the Cavs get off to a slow start without their starting center? And once he gets back, how long does it take him to get up to speed with everything they've been doing in these preseason games and training camp?
It's a good point on missing the time where they're trying to play a faster paced offense. They're trying to sort of move the ball a lot more and in transition, try to get buckets, which is something that they lacked, that they weren't doing as much of last year.
Yeah.
And I think it's the evolution of this team and the evolution of basketball. Like, I think it's par for the course at this point that a team should do that, especially with a young group like they have. I see where you're coming from. It's very valid. I think, though, more than anything, I think when you hear that that's the pace that the team wants to play with anyway, I think it already is a sign that maybe, I don't want to say Jarrett Allen isn't long for Cleveland necessarily. Again, as we speculate on things, and
yeah, for sure.
You know,
it's a whole other conversation.
And try to guesstimate whether or not he's going to be here long term. And people wanted him traded last year and all these different things. But like, I already kind of feel like maybe he does become not the weak link, but the less important part of that starting five, if that's the style that you play with, and if you get guys that are kind of more comfortable with each other, that it doesn't involve him. It's not that I don't think he can play at that pace, but you're right. Like, I think once he gets back out on the floor, it's probably going to take him a little bit of time to just sort of like get up to speed, which means maybe he's playing like limited minutes or whatever. And JB talked about it. Like, they spent a lot of time this preseason and training camp just really running, getting their legs sort of used to that idea that they're going to be running a lot and moving pretty quickly. And if Jarrett hasn't been able to participate, like, there's a conditioning part of this that does play a role here. And you do wonder long-term what that means, but we'll see. I do think one benefit, maybe not a benefit, but the silver lining in him not playing is that I think that this Cavs team out of the gate here is going to get to see what they can do as like more of a versatile, smaller lineup in some respects. Like, is George Niang going to play the 4 and Evans going to play the 5 a lot? And if so, I think that kind of bodes well for them sort of being able to be flexible and malleable throughout the season and try some different looks and try some different things. So I think maybe that's one silver lining to him not starting the season, assuming that that's what's going to happen.
I mean, like you said, that's a fair point. I'm a believer that I do think Jarrett Allen's here for the long haul. I do. Without Allen, your defense is going to take a hit too, because he had a top 3 defensive rating last season. Like, he does bring value to the floor, and with him not in there, like, you're not at full strength, and it's already position group that we've been talking about, the front court being thin. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how the team starts without him. Whether that be they get off to a slow start, quick start, both figuratively and literally. We'll see. It'll be interesting.
Well, you talked about it, like the different style of play this year. Just they're going to play fast. They're going to move in transition. It's going to be, as I talked with Spencer Davies earlier on our post-practice report, it's going to be a lot of rebound and run. Like, so you're going to be getting boards and in transition trying to get buckets, which again, I think that is pretty much what we see in the NBA across the league now. Is like teams are taking advantage of the fact that, like, well, it behooves us to not go get set in the half court every single time and try to get out in transition, because there's no defense in front of you if you can do it that way. So I think it's maybe not long overdue, but maybe overdue for this Cavs team to sort of play that style, especially having a young group that has fresher legs and can do something like that. So I'm certainly excited about that. But Tommy, like, what are you most looking forward to watching with this team this year?
Can I go back to one thing really quick? I'm about to kind of salty, but so you're saying they're going to rebound, run, and then you just space the floor out. That's kind of the offense they're going to play.
Exactly.
So Kevin Love, he'd be kind of nice to have on this team. I don't know.
It all goes back to Kevin Love,
a big man rebounder who is a fantastic passer,
great outlet passer. Yeah, he's always good at that.
I don't know. That one's always going to kind of the buyout there. I don't know. Still kind of hurts. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I think we talked about it that, like, from a leadership standpoint, Tristan Thompson sort of bringing him back sort of felt like, oh, let's get somebody who can give that veteran presence, like replacing Kevin Love. Not that he's the same player as Kevin Love, but yeah, you get the idea. Anyway, what are you most looking forward to with this Cavs team this year? It could be like maybe a specific player. It could be again, just the style of offense and the style of play they're going to have. But what are you most looking forward to this season?
For me, it's got to be the depth. I don't know. I know we talked about this. That was the name of our entire last podcast. But especially as this, we've seen the second group play in the last couple preseason games. I'm excited to watch the depth on this team. I mean, you have Ty Jerome come off the bench. You have Isaac Okoro already, being in that primary reserve role. Karis LeVert. I think that this second unit can become a really fun group to watch on the floor that's also going to be productive at the same time. So that's something that the Cavs really haven't had the past couple of years, this depth. I know that we've talked about, well, maybe they did have the depth, but it didn't really come to fruition.
I thought they did last year, but it didn't happen.
I did too. But I do think this season they have that depth, and it's going to be kind of fun to watch that team of guys on the bench kind of come into their own and help the team as a whole on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you saw like the depth, I think, was on display throughout the preseason. I think the spacing in that final dress rehearsal game against the Pacers, you saw how the benefit of the spacing that they were creating with Niang out there, with Strus out there. And Donovan talked about that after practice on Monday as well, where he just said it allows us to operate with so much more confidence. We know like we can kick out to somebody and they can shoot a three, or the floor is more opened up and Evan can go to work, I can attack the basket. So I think that's going to work wonders for them. Totally. Like, and here's the thing. We both kind of we want to see Strus in action before we fully judge, like, was this the right move or was it not?
Yeah.
But I think even like him in the preseason, we got a glimpse of just his presence mattering to teams. Like, teams clearly are respecting the fact that there is a shooter out there. And I think that's going to pay dividends for this team for sure. I also think, to your point on the depth, like, there's certain roles that are going to be more defined. Karis LeVert, he talked about just being able to play with more confidence because he knows what his role is this year and he's not going to be bouncing around as much. And I think that obviously bodes well for him as well, where he can just kind of play freely and do his thing and come off the bench and be one of those first guys up. I got to say, man, and this is going to be the cliche answer.
To Strus really quick?
Sure.
So 2 things about Strus. Number 1, Donovan Mitchell said today or on Monday after practice, he was kind of comparing him to Kyle Korver in a way. Like,
he did say that. Yeah.
Not that Max Strus is Kyle Korver, but the fact that like defenses have to chase him around the floor and always keep a man on him. So again, that's something that you clearly did not have, or the Cavs clearly did not have last season.
He mentioned Korver. He mentioned Jordan Clarkson. He was like, these are guys I played with before. That
I think Royce O'Neal was in there too.
Yeah, the guys that give you that same sort of threat. Where, we just know we have to respect them, or else they can knock it down for 3. And that's what the Cavs are missing last year. So I think in the very least, like, Strus's presence is going to be there for sure.
Number 2 with that, I've been very impressed with Strus's playmaking ability. Like, that was something. I mean, I watched the playoffs last year, but I feel like we didn't get to see that a ton from him. But I mean, he's helping to move the ball around. In that last preseason game, he tried to stuff someone, like a chase down block. I mean, it's just those little things though. Like, again, I kind of went into this assuming that he'd be the guy in the corner waiting to shoot threes, but clearly he's moving without the ball. He's making things happen. So, I mean, there, that's going to be helpful on offense for sure.
And on the defensive end, like, JB is going to emphasize that. He even talked about, when he talked about the style of play this team's going to have, he ended the quote. I don't remember it word for word. It's again, that's another video you can find on my Twitter @Spencito_, where he ended it by saying, like, our defense is still going to be a major part of our identity. So I think the fact that Strus is giving you something on that end, or at least he's going to give you the effort on that end.
Correct. Yeah.
I have no doubts about his effort on that end. It's just, I don't know that he's like the greatest defender, but we'll see how that kind of plays in action. And luckily guys like Evan Mobley, and when Jarrett Allen gets back out there, they sort of mask some of that too. So they can make up for some mistakes. But yeah, I think hopefully we'll see some of that pay off early on in the season here. I do want to say, in terms of what I'm most excited about, and I know it's probably the cliche answer to the thing that everybody's been talking about the most, but just year 3 of Evan Mobley, I want to enjoy it, man. Like, I think we get so hung up, and this was not to, again, just quote JB Bickerstaff all show, but we get so hung up on the stat line for him. Like, oh, he's not scoring 20 points a night, or he's not scoring 20 and 10 a night. And it's like, guys, I think we have to, it's Evan Mobley's effect on the game doesn't always show up in the box score. Like, it's not something you can tangibly track. JB mentioned, like, there's not a stat for the number of times that Evan's in the right place. So a guy who's thinking about driving to the basket has to back out because he's like, oh, I don't want to attack that guy. Like, those are the types of things that are missing from the context when you talk about Evan Mobley and just his presence on the floor. Like, do I think he's going to get better as a scorer this year? yes, it looks like in the preseason they're having him be like a ball handler and have the offense really run through him, which is what it should be. So I do think there's going to be more of an offensive presence. But even if he doesn't give you that every night, and even if his presence is more felt on the defensive end, I'm just going to start living with that because that guy is a freak at times, and he makes some plays that I've just never seen on the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah, I mean, one of those plays you're talking about, as I still remember I think it was his rookie season. It was like his maybe the 10th, 12th game, somewhere around there, and Zach LaVine tried to drive, and he just took the ball, like he didn't even block it. He just like put his hand up, grabbed the ball, hit the outlet pass, and I'm pretty sure it ended with like a dunk for him or something. But those are the kind of plays that you're talking about. Like those don't show up in the stat sheet, but he certainly has that effect on a game. And I think with Mobley too, like you said, he's not going to score 25 points a game. He's just not. Like you have already a lot of scores. So the biggest thing I'm looking for with him is like, what does your efficiency look like? What are you shooting from inside the paint? Are you someone who you can count on to shoot 80% from mid range? Like those are the little things that I think are really going to take Evan Mobley from year one rookie, year two sophomore to like that next step. Because again, our Cavs already have a lot of scores. Like as long as he can get more efficient and still score 16 or 18 points a game, like that's going to be huge.
Well, let's get into one of the big topics every single year when you talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that, of course, is what expectations should be.
I thought you were going to say city uniforms, but this works too.
Well, no, we're gonna get to that. Don't worry, we'll get to that. But I guess maybe poor wording on my part, because I do think you could rewind 4 years ago and there wasn't a lot of expectations.
No.
The addition of guys to the draft like Evan Mobley and others, and now obviously the trade for Donovan Mitchell last year has certainly set a standard and set an expectation.
Absolutely.
So with all that in mind, knowing where our heads were at about this time last year, where it was like, okay, I think this team's ceiling should be at least winning a playoff series. What do you see the ceiling as for the Cavaliers this year? What expectations should fans put on the wine and gold this year?
Expectations wise, like towards the end of the season, I think you have a playoff series win as like your floor. Like you need to win at least one playoff series for this to be headed in the right direction. Ceiling wise, I mean, that depends a lot. I mean, obviously we still have 82 games to go this year. A lot what happens around the NBA in terms of Eastern Conference, who's going to get traded, what teams are going to blow it up and everything. But I think,
by the way, we've talked about it on this show several times. Well, and we're not, I don't want to listen. I'm not the only person who's probably had that take, but the 76ers already looking like it's all falling apart before the season even starts. So there you go.
Right. Yeah. So I think expectations wise, floor is a playoff series win. I think you need to get to the second round at least. Ceiling, I think this roster, looking at it right now, is definitely good enough to be an Eastern Conference Finals team.
I agree.
There's going to be a lot that has to go their way, both like internally with your team and maybe a little bit externally based on what other teams end up doing as well. But I don't know. You got to win a playoff series. I know I keep saying it, but you have to.
I think I'm right there with you, and it's hard. The hard thing is, like, I understand why fans maybe there might be some fans out there who are like, well, that was the expectation last year, so this year I'm expecting more, even though they came up short last year. But I think you're right. Like the context here matters. Mm-hmm. And when you look around the East and you see the Bucks got better, they had Damian Lillard.
Celtics got better.
The Celtics got better. They added Kristaps Porzingis. They added Drew Holiday. It sort of hits you like, well, if you win a playoff series and you get to the second round, you're probably playing against one of those teams.
Yep.
And if you lose to one of those teams, like that's really not the worst thing in the world, because those teams I think are still considered better than the Cavs at this time.
Yeah, so I would consider that for sure.
I think I have to set my expectation bar, not to make for a boring episode here in terms of this topic specifically.
We're realistic here at Cavs
and agree with you.
Right. Yeah. We're realistic. No hot takes at all.
Right. No, well, sometimes, but
sometimes.
I won't be saying bring on the Knicks again, even though that wasn't on this show. But I think I just have to set it at win a playoff series, which is I think a step past what they obviously did last year, and I can live with that. I also think that's maybe a step towards convincing Donovan Mitchell, like, hey, we're making progress here with your help. We want to keep you here long term. So we'll see how all that kind of plays out. But I think the expectation should be winning a playoff series, especially if the 76ers really do fall apart here and things don't really get to the start of the season before it's all just kind of unraveling on them, then I think there's a really good chance. And I think you'll see a lot of the experts out there picking the Cavs to finish maybe third in the conference, which means, hey, yeah, you should be in that conversation for at least winning a playoff series and making the second round. So I think we're on the same page with this. Let's go to another topic that'll be hotly debated throughout the season. JB Bickerstaff and his status as the head coach of this team. I think these conversations are always hard because there's always a contingent of fans who their minds are made up about JB and they think he's no good. I tend to believe, I think JB is a good coach. And I think like some of his obviously errors have been magnified, but that's across sports. Like coaches' errors are always magnified.
For sure.
And I do think too that I do think that it's okay to give a guy some time to sort of figure some things out with the team that he currently has, and the roster that he currently has, especially when he was missing a lot of pieces last year. Like I don't put the playoff loss. Everyone was like, JB needs to pull some different levers. Like, what levers did you want him to pull in the playoffs last year?
I'm completely on the same page.
He had Lamar Stevens and Isaac. Like he didn't have a lot of his disposal. So I think he did the best he could.
It was an incomplete roster. I mean, that's what it was.
And that's why I do think the pressure's up this year because now he has the pieces and the parts and he's got to put it all together. But I do also think like he's done a really good job with this team from just a morale standpoint and a team building standpoint. And they seem to believe in him and rally around him and buy into him. So from that standpoint, like I'm willing to see this year through before I just pull the plug on JB Bickerstaff. I'm sure there's people out there that disagree, but that's where I'm at with it. Like I'm okay giving the guy another playoff round to see what he does. And then we can reassess in the off season.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page. And like you said, not to make it boring or anything, but like, look, he's done a good job. Like you can't deny that he has not done a good job as the Cavaliers head coach from taking over when the Cavs were, let's face it, not a great basketball team.
Yeah.
And building it up, obviously a trade for Donovan Mitchell along the way helps out with that too. But I think the biggest thing is you look and see at these guys and like Darius Garland has taken these steps every year. Evan Mobley is taking these steps every single year. Like Jarrett Allen, you can argue, is taking those steps. And I think part of that does fall on the head coach and the impact that he's had and getting them in the right positions. I don't think it's fair to maybe be so quick as to say, I mean, we said at the beginning of this episode, I said that I think the Cavs could possibly get off to a slow start to the year, depending on who's available and just this new offense. But I think that I'm not a big fan in sports in general. I'm not a big fan of all the coaching carousels. I think that finding a guy and sticking through it with them is the way to go, because that's the vision that you have planned out for the entire team, not just the head coach. I mean, you start getting too many voices in there and everything. I don't know.
It's funny to say that with this team, though, because the year they won a championship is also the year that they pulled the plug on David Blatt.
Yeah, and you're right on that.
And gave it over to Ty Lue, and then it all worked out in the end.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't like continuously getting new coaches in and bringing in new schemes and bringing in new. I think that and there's an anomaly for sure. 2016 Cavs was an anomaly, and that number 23 certainly helped out with that. But, LeBron James, if you didn't pick up on that reference.
That might be the first time we've mentioned LeBron, by the way.
We've done a really good job.
Normally he always comes up because we're always like, oh, well, during the LeBron days.
Yeah, we've done a good job at that. I don't know. I feel like I'm talking in circles now, but
No, you're good.
I feel like I don't understand what firing Bickerstaff would change. Like who else would take over?
I don't know what it accomplishes now.
Nothing.
I mean, it's not going to happen now, but maybe mid-season if you did it.
But even then,
I guess that's the difference with the Blatt Ty Lue situation. Was like you kind of had a natural person to take over.
Right.
I don't know who your natural person to take over is mid-season. I think JB probably does get till the end of the year, and then we can reassess the situation. But I think he's earned at least another year, at least another playoff series before we just throw in the towel on him completely. Even though some people probably are already there with him. Let's see what he's learned and if he can do a little bit more with a better roster. Couple last notes. I want to get us out of here with a team MVP for the season. We'll end on that, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the City Edition jerseys, which, by the way,
hotly debated topic.
I think jerseys always are, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are.
I think the NBA, like, I understand what they're trying to do here. It's like a cool gimmicky thing every year. Like, oh, we got this special jersey every single year, and it's for them. It's a sales thing. Like, we're gonna sell these jerseys.
Yeah, for sure.
Does it feel like they should stick with one for a couple years before they just switch it again. Because like some of these ones that they revealed a bunch of them all on Monday. They revealed all of them on Monday, and some of them are just like there was a great jersey that some of these teams, like for example, here's the perfect example: the Miami Heat. They had that Miami Vice jersey, which is probably one of the best City Edition jerseys ever.
I don't know. That's a hot take. I don't know.
You don't like the Miami Vice jerseys? Are you kidding me, Tommy? What the hell?
They're all right. They're all right. I think they're definitely better. They're definitely.
It's one of the best jerseys, and they downgraded this year to a jersey that literally just says Heat culture on it. It's like that's the best you could do with just ridiculous,
my take with the Miami Vice ones. So I saw a meme on Twitter. It was like the Yoplait like yogurt. And ever since I saw that, I couldn't not look past that, which has really hurt I'm sorry if I just ruined it for you. But ever since I saw
ruin it because it's a sick jersey. I don't care.
Ever since I saw that meme, I was like, I can never look past that.
Like if there was a player I cared about enough on that team, I would have bought one. Like those things were sweet. Yeah. I love them. They were legit. Like if LeBron still played for them, I would have totally bought a LeBron James Miami Vice jersey.
Yeah, I don't know. I always think of my Go-Gurts when I was little when I look at those jerseys. So I don't know. I can't say I love them.
Anyway, the Cavs this year has a theme around it centered around Playhouse Square. It says the land on it. There's like this sort of gold trimming on the arms and the legs. I'll let you go first. So we texted about this. I hated it when I first saw it, but I think it might have had to do with the fact that whatever it was on like a mannequin. And in the picture that was circulating, it looked like it was like the jersey looked like it was like plastic. Like it didn't look right to me.
Yeah, that's
so fair. I think that might have been why maybe I didn't like it because it was all like wrinkly and it just seemed weird. But when you see the actual jersey version of it, like in the pictures, I've come around on it a little bit more.
Yeah, I like them. I don't love them. I don't hate them.
Did you like last year's?
Last year's.
It was like that. It had like the blue and the sort of. brown.
Yeah. I was kind of on the.
It was for the Metro
wasn't the biggest. Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of those. I don't know. I do like these new ones. I do like. I like that they're kind of simple. I'm more of a simplistic jersey kind of guy. I don't like there's a ton going on, and I do think they're simple in the fact like it's just like the script land or the land. I'm not a huge fan of that phrasing, but they remind me a lot of the 2017 Christmas uniforms, like in a good way, like the scripts.
Yeah, those are cool.
I also like the gold. Like I feel like when I think of Cavs, like I the gold is what I want to see. So I like those, the gold, like kind of, I don't know, touch up color on it, I guess. I like them. What I'm most excited to see, because I feel like this is where my opinion has kind of changed on some of these jerseys, is like usually they release the courts with them too, like the special city edition courts. And I remember it was the Navy. I think it was 2021 maybe, or it was like the Navy jerseys with like the script cleat, but it was like a couple of different jerseys from the past. You know what I'm talking? Remember that one?
Wait, it was.
I think it was Garland's rookie year with the Navy.
I'm actually pulling this up right now because there's like a website that has just all of them on it. It's yeah. It had like kind of like the checkered pattern down the side. Yeah, those are sweet. Those are cool.
Yeah. At first, I wasn't the biggest fans of those. I was like, yeah, they're all right, whatever. But then when I saw them like with the floor on it and everything, like the actual like court floor, I was like, oh yeah, these are actually pretty cool. So I'm excited to see, like, I know we're talking about the jersey and now I'm talking about the floor of the but I don't know. I think it all fits in the same theme. So I feel like my opinion, I'm going to wait to say whether I officially like them or don't like them until I see them kind of all together with that entire theme.
I think that one you named was good. I think the
one from 2 years ago, just the maroon one with the Cavalier on the front.
Yeah, that one was cool.
That was nice.
I think the one you named was one of the ones that was the best up there. I also think that the 2018 City Edition one was cool, where it was it was the throwback to. It was like the orange on the top with like the jagged sort of.
Yeah, the Tide Pod.
Yeah, the Tide Pod. You got a lot of different references.
I'm telling you, that's what it reminds me of, a Tide Pod.
Well, I will die on the hill that when LeBron came back. No, not those jerseys. When LeBron came back, the road alternate that they had, that was like the more of like it was like a navy blue, but it wasn't like it was like a lighter navy blue.
Yes.
And it said Cavs on it within the wine and like the yellow trim.
Yeah.
I think those were the best Cavs jerseys in like my lifetime. Because I love the Knicks colored ones, but I think that actually looked better.
Yeah, I have to go with my favorite Cavs jerseys, like scheme wise, like 2010 LeBron, the white, the wine, and the navy ones, like the classic 2005 to 2010. When I was little, my room in my bedroom had that striping like on the side. That was
that's cool.
So those I got some nostalgia for, but I like those a lot.
By the way, the worst like regular jerseys they wore had to be from 2017 to 2022 when they had like just those maroon ones and it's a Cavalier, like those. I don't know. All I think about when I see those jerseys is what's his name? I think of oh God, this is gonna annoy me so much. Boy. It's it'll come to me. Let me think about it, and let's get to our final topic of the show, which is give me your Cavaliers MVP of the season when it's all said and
done. Darius Garland. I feel like we've talked a lot about Evan Mobley, big year 3 jump. Donovan Mitchell is going to be Donovan Mitchell. I feel like we're not giving Darius Garland enough love. Like, this dude is one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA, and I will die on that hill. Like, I think we see another like step up year from him in terms of I feel like Darius Garland couldn't be Darius Garland in his offense last year because it was a lot of pick and roll. I feel like Darius Garland playing maybe a little bit more off the ball this year can get himself open, some more threes. I don't know. I think that we're going to see a big year from him. He's going to make it back to the All-Star game.
That's I remember, by the way, it was Jay Crowder. When I think of those like maroon jerseys, I just think of Jay Crowder stinking up the joint. Like, he was so weak. Like, the Cavs got the worst version of Jay Crowder ever. It was so.
Remember when Isaiah Thomas was on the Cavs for like 2 minutes?
I do remember. I remember LeBron hit that buzzer beater against the Timberwolves, and he tried to go over and chest bump LeBron, and LeBron just like completely ignored him.
He went right to Jetty.
Yeah, he went right to Jetty. He completely bypassed him. He did not care. They did not get along, those two. Which is just so crazy.
And speaking of city jerseys, those gray ones, this might be a hot take, but I love those.
I went back and looked at those. They were okay.
I love those.
I want them to do something in black with the land. I think the land is a cool slogan, or like a way to shorten it all, obviously. But I want them to do something black with it. Anyway, my MVP of the season is I think I'm going to have to go with Evan Mobley. Again, low-hanging fruit, I guess, but I just think like year 3 of his development, he's going to take off, and I think that the Cavs are going to emphasize like making the offense kind of run through him, and that's going to open things up for other guys. But I think obviously coming off of last year, the answer was Donovan Mitchell, and I think a lot of people would obviously pick him as again, but I think Mobley is just going to be used differently this year, and it's going to pay some huge dividends to this team. So I'm going to go with Evan Mobley, and we'll see if it all shakes out that way. Yep. But you bringing up DG is a good one, because I'm curious to see how he and Donovan play alongside each other in year 2. And they've talked a lot about that already in the preseason as well. So a lot of good stuff. We went a little bit longer than I think we wanted to today, but that's okay. Hopefully you enjoyed the content. It was
basketball's back.
Basketball. That's all that matters, right?
That's all that matters.
Is officially going to be back in about more than 24 hours, but in 24 hours we'll have actual tangible NBA basketball to talk about, which is super, super exciting. So we will talk to you guys again soon. I don't know when we're going to have our next episode yet. Late this week. I know we got some scheduling conflicts, but it might be an early next week thing that we reconnect. And then we're going to try to shoot for, at least in the early portion of the season, Thursday nights to drop these. But in the meantime, you can follow along with all things Cleveland Cavaliers at CavsInsider.com and on Twitter, CavsInsider_FN. And we appreciate you guys always following along all season long at Cavs Insider. Thanks again for watching. For Tommy and myself, have a great week. And as always, go Cavs.